Live and welcome back to me. I'm back. I'm home. My disaster, my in football season vacation was a disaster. The Browns are a disaster. The Guardian situation with Clase and Ortiz is a disaster. But we're going to try to make the most of it together. It's the longest I have gone without being on the air in a while, so I'm happy to be back after 9 days off and a terrible vacation. The worst trip. Don't go to St. Martin. I'll advise you there. Lot to get to today. Welcome back to the bullpen, brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not using the Bet Rivers app, you are missing out. So make sure that you are, all right? Do whatever you got to do. Make sure you're using the Bet Rivers app for all your gambling needs. Again, we'll get to the Guardian stuff later in the show, but we begin where we've sadly too often began. The Browns once again losing, this time to the woeful New York Jets. And my buddy Mikey McNuggets said earlier today, this is a game that you expect the Browns to win. And, Mikey McNuggets hasn't been in Cleveland long enough. He's seen a lot of bad things in his short time here. And in fact, he's been here 2.5 years at this point. Or is it 3.5 years at this point? I don't know. I can't. No, I think it's. Man, when did we start? 22. So it's been 3.5 years. So there's been a lot of garbage in 3.5 years, but the Browns haven't played a game where you thought they couldn't lose since the freaking 80s. Another just pitiful performance by the Browns, who are now winless on the road at 0-5. They're 2-7. And that puts them tied for the second worst record in the NFL with the aforementioned Jets, who beat them, with the Las Vegas Raiders, who the Browns will play later in the season. I shouldn't say it's the second worst record. It's actually the third worst, because the Giants, who just choked one away to the Bears, and the Saints, who beat the Panthers, those teams are 2-8. So you got the Titans at 1-8. You got the Giants and the Saints at 2-8. And then you got the Browns, the Raiders, and the Jets at 2-7. Those are your worst teams in the NFL. And what a shot. I heard a lot. I've heard, for years, you always argue, well, if you're going to be bad, you might as well be real bad, because then you get a higher pick, right? But why is it that the same teams are bad every year? How many years? I know it's not forever with this team, but the Giants have been bad for a decade now. They're always picking high. The Saints have been picking high since Drew Brees has been gone. The Titans have been picking high since Mike Vrabel got fired. The Browns have been picking high for 30 years. Same with the Raiders. Same with the Jets. So don't tell me, and I used to be one of those people. Well, yeah, lose. You want the top pick. The bad teams, they fuck up the top pick. So what's the difference? At least Paul DePodesta's gone. The Jay Crawford boogeyman is out. He's with the Rockies. He goes from one shit franchise in the NFL to a shit franchise in Major League Baseball. I was actually debating with someone this week, what's a worse franchise, the Browns or the Rockies? That's what it's come to. The Browns, the Jets, who had been the worst team in football for much of this year, their offense is absolutely dreadful. Their offense was dreadful again today. They're at home. They traded away their best defensive players. They have no good. They have, Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are nice players, but they have a terrible quarterback situation, same as the Browns. And the Browns lose again. I don't know why anybody would think there'd be anything different. That's kind of crazy that you had any expectations for the Browns. They're a terrible football team. They've won 5 football games since the start of last season. That's 26. If you go back to the year before, the Browns have lost 23 of their last 28 games. Is that the worst? I don't know. Maybe Tennessee's worse than that, but it's right there amongst the worst. And every week, every game, the Browns find new ways to be incompetent. The Jets scored a touchdown. The Jets scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. They had I think 11 yards. They get the punt return, they get the kick return touchdown, and a punt return touchdown in the same quarter. In the same quarter. It's just crazy. They scored 2 touchdowns. on a punt return and a kick return. How is that possible? How is that possible? But that's what happened. And then they, got just enough offense going late. When the game was tied in the fourth quarter, the Browns defense, which played well for most of the game, gave up the big touchdown at the beginning of the fourth quarter. The Jets marched it down the field and gave up the long run on the Breece Hall play. And then the Jets score a field goal. Browns get a field goal back. The Browns have a chance to stop the Jets after the Jets initially got the first down on that final drive. And then on fourth down play, 2 plays. The Browns are just the stupidest football team ever. They're so poorly coached. They have stupid football players. You have I can't remember the name of the player. Cam Thomas. I don't even know who the hell Cam Thomas is. I don't want to know. Cam Thomas can get the fuck out of here. That guy should be cut. If the Browns had any balls as an organization, Cam Thomas would not be allowed. Let Cam Thomas hitchhike his ass back from New York or New Jersey. How do you jump off sides when it's not even a situation where early in the game the Browns on a fourth down were trying to draw the Jets offside and they false started, of course, because that's what because they fuck everything up. But in that situation, if you were the Jets, I guess I could understand the false offsides there because there was a chance the Browns were going to go for it. In fact, they should have gone for it, despite the fact that Adam Archuleta is saying they should punt the ball. Why should they punt the ball? They're 2-6 coming into this game. You're playing a 1-7 football team. Why punt the ball? Go for it. Anyway, they try. At least in that situation, it could go either way. The Browns might snap it. They might not. Who knows? On this play at the end, and by the way, there was less than a minute to go, and the Jets and the Browns at best would have had it at their own 20. Dylan Gabriel is unfortunately not a football player, and there was no way they were going to score a touchdown in a minute anyway. But that doesn't excuse the fact that this clown jumps off sides. Why would you move ever? There is zero chance the Jets were going for it there. Zero. There was no possible way that the Jets were going. What are you trying to do? What were you hoping to achieve? Were you going to block the punt? You stiff dick. What are you doing? And that's why the Browns are the stupidest football team in America. That you had the penalty, the defensive holding on 3rd and 16 when the Browns could have actually gotten the ball back with 2 times. They would have had to call a timeout there if it wasn't for the penalty. So the Browns initially on that last drive could have had the ball with 1:50 something and 1 timeout left. Maybe you have a shot. Maybe. Probably 1%, but maybe. That's a beyond stupid play by Devin Bush. And then that got even topped by a historic dumb play by Cameron Thomas. I mean, that play by Cameron Thomas goes into the dumb football Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any doubt about it. That is one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen. What a complete buffoon. So, like I said, how about this? The Texans, who were down 29-10 at the start of the fourth quarter, just took the lead against the Jags at home with 22 seconds left. On a touchdown pass. No, Davis Mills runs it in from 14 yards out. My gosh, look at the Texans coming back. It should be mind-blowing, but it's not. It's not. So the Browns just do what they do. They're poorly coached. By the way, I can't everybody knows I love Aditi, but I don't like her broadcast team. She's going to get mad at me for saying this. Spiro Ditas and Adam Archuleta. Please, I know they stick those guys with the Browns every week. I can't. Spiro Ditas has just been mailing it in for years. He's the Jarrett Wright of broadcasters. If you know, you know. Came out with a shining star and then crashed. He mails it in. He's pissed probably that he's getting all these crappy games. I'm so him and Archuleta just stink, and that's frustrating too. And we'll probably be stuck watching them like 5 more times. The only highlight is that I get to see Aditi on there, but the broadcast just terrible, and it's just watching this game. It was like watching a Division III football game. That's what it felt like. I did 8 years of play-by-play of Division III football, from 1997 to 2006. That was really 10 years. And that's what it was like. That's what it was like watching this game. It was like the offenses. The defenses, we know the Browns defense is pretty good. The Jets defense had been pretty awful, but they played well today because the Browns are so inept. But offensively, it was just pathetic. It was just, the Browns offense is so pitiful. It really is. It's just so freaking painful to watch. I mean, it's nauseating. Folks, I don't know. I just don't know how you can. How are we going to make it through the rest of the season? It's hard. I mean, the only hope is I'd like to see Shedeur Sanders. I'm not convinced that it's going to be any better, but I'd like to see. But the Browns are not going to do that. Dylan Gabriel was not good. He's just not a good quarterback. I've seen no signs of it. Made a couple decent throws, but even that touchdown, that touchdown to Judy, that ball, Spiro Ditas, great throw by Dylan Gabriel. I'm like, are you kidding me? That ball was lofted up there like a Hail Mary. He had nothing on that. That ball was like a wounded duck. The Browns lost to a team that completed 6 passes. The Jets threw for 54 yards and won a game. I mean, think about that for a minute. The two teams combined for 221 yards passing. 221 yards passing. My God. I mean, it was like less than 450 yards total. Jerry Jeudy, I thought, had a good game. I'll give him credit. One of the highlights. Quinshon Judkins, again, the yards per carry doesn't look good, but I thought he had some really nice runs in this game. I like that he got 22 carries. I'd throw him the ball more, too. But I thought Jeudy played well. Jeudy and Judkins. And Judy's had a miserable season. He has best game, 6 for 78 and a touchdown. Dylan Gabriel, I can't. I can't. Why are they making us do this? What do they see? What does Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, what do they see in this guy? I just don't get it. I get guys improve. You know? I understood what some people saw in Sam Darnold. Certainly Baker had his success here. Daniel Jones is having a nice bounce back season. I know there's some stories like this, folks. I get it. Those guys, I mean, nobody. How does anybody see anything in Dylan Gabriel? I know the team around him is not any good. I know the offensive line stinks. Jack Conklin got his ass kicked. The Browns' offensive line is bad. We know about the wide receivers. But some of the throws this guy makes, they're so horrible. I have no clue what he's doing. It's nothing against him personally. I'm sure he's a really nice guy. I'm harsh in my criticism. Sometimes I go too far. I don't mean to be mean, but Dylan Gabriel is just not an NFL quarterback. I just don't know how anybody would see it any other way. It's like when politicians just lie to your face and tell you, if this is happening, we're doing this. No, you're not. We know that's not true. But they're going to keep saying it. They're going to keep lying to you. That's what the Browns are doing to us. That's what they're doing here. And now, for all the people who thought they'd win 5-6, they're not winning 5-6 games. In a league where mediocrity rules, the Browns are one of the exceptions. And the Browns obviously have plenty of games that winnable for them. The Ravens are rounding into form. They're going to kick the Browns' ass next week. Then you got to go to Vegas. All right, maybe the Browns win that game. Maybe they beat the Niners at home. Maybe they beat the Titans at home. Maybe. The Bills were terrible today. The Bengals have been awful. I don't know. But the Browns are so bad. They're so bad. And I just feel like, they're going to have a high pick. The Jaguars choking their game away today is obviously good for the Browns in terms of draft picks. But who's making those picks? What did Houston get, another touchdown at the end? Yeah, they did. Fumble recovery, and Houston scores 26 points in the fourth quarter to win 36-29. As I said, the Ravens getting back on track. They won 27-19 over Minnesota. That Bills game was weird. Miami beat them 30-13. What's going on with the Bills? They're playing terribly. Terribly. So right now there's nothing to hang your hat on. Yeah, I like what we've seen from Quinshon Judkins. Harold Fannin definitely has some potential. Carson Schlesinger played great today. Mason Graham had an impact on that one play. It was a really nice play. But there's just not, we know about Myles Garrett. I mean, the defense is good. The Browns have a good defense. It's not elite. It's not unstoppable. It's average at best without Myles Garrett, but overall it's a good, really good defense. But it's not, they've missed some opportunities when the team had a chance to win. But the offense is so impossibly bad, and the special teams are so impossibly bad that you can't win. I don't care how good your defense is. How do you give up a punt return and a kick return for a touchdown? And then we're going to praise them because they ran on to get that field goal on time? Like the special teams coach accomplished something there? Give me a break. This team, I mean, there's no doubt that everybody should go at the end of the year. Again, I don't need to fire anybody midseason. You want to fire Bubba Ventrone right now? That's fine. I mean, he's useless. But at the end of the year, unless there's some miracle turnaround in their final 8 games, you have to fire everybody. Let Paul DePodesta just be the start of turnover. And again, it is always the caveat that, well, in the end, will it matter if Jimmy Haslam doesn't change? And the reality is probably no, unless you get very lucky at quarterback. That's the only hope, is to get very lucky. Kevin Stefanski speaking right now. He said Dylan Gabriel is going to play. Of course, he said he's going to play again next week. Because Kevin Stefanski has an unhealthy obsession with shitty quarterbacks. I don't know what it is. So, Dylan Gabriel's going to play till he gets hurt. Again, the Browns are coached poorly. Switching to Tommy Reese didn't make a difference today. The quarterback stinks. The offensive line, everything on the offense stinks, outside of a couple of guys. And the coaching is terrible. So that's where you're at. I mean, I don't even know how upset I can get about the actual loss because I thought they'd lose. You know? Adam Majetti says, welcome back. Thank you, Adam. Guy the Jedi, Buck the Frowns. Michael Shupska, I'm okay with Dylan Gabriel taking another L against Baltimore. Shador time in 2 weeks, baby. Finally, the truth, says Bull. You have to admit that Myles is right. We lost again in the same exact way as the other 6 losses. It's the quarterback. I can explain it to. Maurice Johnson says, no, we didn't, in caps. 56 yards passing and 7 points. The defense is good. They still had an opportunity for a stop when it was a tie game, and they let them score a touchdown. Again, I can't blame them, but because they get no help from the offense. But I'm not calling this group elite. No, I'm not going to do it. Finally, the truth is the offense is really good. Dillon is making them look bad because he can't stretch the field. Dillon Gabriel stinks, but come on. If you can't be serious that the offense is really good. There's no way you're serious about that. The offense is trash. He's trash, but so is the rest of the offense. So they're going to keep playing Dillon Gabriel. They're going to keep losing. They're going to get destroyed next week by Baltimore. And I mean, I don't. They're going to be a big underdog, obviously, in that game. Let's see if we got the spread already for next week's game. I don't think we have it yet. But I think let's see. The game is at home. I'll say the Browns are I'm going to say 7-point dog at home. Michael says, if bad penalties on offense are on the coach, the dumb defensive penalties also have to be on the coach. Time to completely clean house from top to bottom. Elephant says, how does anyone justify bringing the same regime back next year? I think you can. William, welcome back, Adam. You are by far the best. That's fair. I can't disagree with that. Thank you, William. Better than Stefanski. Yeah, I think I would be. The end of the game with the penalties was pathetic. Stefanski really should get canned. Doug, Gabriel making Couch look amazing. Well, Tim Couch was a legitimate NFL quarterback who played on a hideous team and got hurt. Gabriel's not an NFL quarterback in my mind. Checkmate. How much better would the defense be if the offense had shown any signs of life? They might be, I don't know. They played really well. Eric says, with the new stadium plans, the Browns aren't interested in winning. That's not completely true. That in a way gives them an excuse. And they get no excuses. The supercomputer is broken. Big Mike, boycott. I don't know why anybody would spend any money on the Browns. I don't know why you'd buy any tickets. I don't know why you'd buy. I mean, I can't imagine them trying to sell season tickets for next year. Who's going to buy that shit? The whole organization is a total joke. And, by the way, once again, I can't take the commercials for the TV shows on CBS. I was going to say no offense, but I'm going to offend you right now. If you like any of those shows on CBS, I can't. Yeah, you have no TV credibility if you watch any of those shows on CBS. Every single show they promoted is absolute shit, and I don't even have to watch them to know they're absolute shit. So that's just crazy. What they're promoting on there. All right, let's talk about this Guardian situation. We've been waiting for months to find out what's going to happen with Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. Here's what we know from Jeff Passan. Now, they've been suspended indefinitely. There was nothing from the league yet, so there's been no change in terms of their suspension yet. However, Jeff Passan reported earlier today that Clase and Ortiz have been charged with fraud, conspiracy, and bribery stemming from an alleged scheme to rig individual pitches that led to gamblers winning hundreds of thousands of dollars, according to an indictment unsealed by federal prosecutors on Sunday. Ortiz was arrested this morning in Boston, will be in court tomorrow. Clase not in custody. Probably in the Dominican Republic right now. Prosecutors of the Eastern District of New York well, this is the similar charges to the Terry Rozier situation there. Quote from Joseph Nocella, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District. The defendants deprived the Cleveland Guardians of Major League Baseball of their honest services. They defrauded the online betting platforms where the bets were placed and then betrayed America's pastime. Integrity, honesty, and fair play are part of the DNA of professional sports. When corruption infiltrates the sport, it brings disgrace not only to the participants, but it damages the public trust in an institution that is vital and dear to all of us. Clearly, it goes on to say later they could be facing up to over 60 years in jail. Reportedly, according to this indictment, Class A has had some level of involvement. The earliest example, according to the indictment, of Class A doing this was May of 23 in a game against the Mets. So for him, it went on for 2 years. For Ortiz, it apparently just started this year. There's a lot to mull over here, and I will talk more about the details in the future. But purely from a Guardian standpoint, even though the league hasn't weighed in on this yet, it is clear that these guys' careers are over. This is the final straw. And Emmanuel Clase, who for a few years has been the best closer in all of baseball, who the Guardian and underpaid, who the Guardians could have traded if it wasn't for this year. Could have. We'll never know if they would have or not. He was so one of the most valuable pitchers in the league is now gone. And from a purely from a Guardian standpoint, these guys from an individual standpoint, these guys threw away their careers for in the grand scheme of baseball, not a lot of money. And we'll have to find out what happened that led to this down the line. It's just crazy. But from a Guardian's perspective, Class A, this is massive. You've lost your best relief pitcher forever. You had him under team control for a number of years at a cheap price. You could have either had him for another few years or traded him for a haul. Instead, he's gone. Luis Ortiz, who was the key piece in the Andres Jimenez trade last year, who showed a lot of promise this season. Again, he's certainly not as good as Class A, but showed a lot of promise when he pitched this year. Gone. And while nothing's official from the league, I can't see, unless somehow these guys are completely vindicated, and there seems to be so much evidence that that's impossible for me to believe, these guys are done. Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz will never play Major League Baseball again. I'm 99.99% sure of that. And for the Guardians, it's terrible. So it's just absolutely terrible. I don't know how you blame the Dolans for this. I mean, you can blame the Dolans for a lot of things, but why are we blaming the Dolans for this? And don't listen. I have my issues with Dolan, but don't lump Dolan in with Jimmy Haslam. Jimmy Haslam is the worst owner in sports. Jimmy Haslam was involved in criminal activity. This is not Dolan's fault. I killed the organization when this first happened, and I was ripping guys that this happened on their watch. But ultimately, this is two guys' fault: Clase and Ortiz. Nobody else is to blame but them. So this is a total disaster for the Guardians, an absolute mess. And Zach and I will be on tomorrow at a time to be determined. We'll talk more about it. So stick around for that. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it as always. I know I didn't get to read all the chats today. There was so many. It was it was impossible to get to everybody, and over 1,000 people watching live right now at this moment, which is huge. So I appreciate for the 1,004 of you that are watching at this moment. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button. I would appreciate it. That's all I ask. Hit that subscribe button. Now 1,030 of you. Please hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. All right. And there'll be a lot to hash out this week. I'll be back with Dustin Tuesday and Thursday. We'll have Zach Jackson on the podcast again this week. I'll also be on UCSS all week this week. A lot to get to. But, I mean, What a terrible day. You had the Browns with a pathetic performance against the Jets, and essentially the end of the careers of Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz all in one day. A fucking disaster. Fucking disaster. But wrap every Cavaliers player in bubble wrap right now, please. All right, folks. I love you all. I, again, appreciate it. Please hit the subscribe button. And I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks to Z and Alex for producing today. And I'll talk to you guys all later. Love you all. Talk to you next time in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.